So part of the 2025 spring meeting today was a presentation of the financial strength of the General Conference. Or should I say the church? So is the General Conference growing financially? And are the leaders happy about it? The video I'm going to show you right now and the commentary after the video will answer this question. So let's get into it and listen to the financial strength of the General Conference.
As I stand up here, I like to reflect on how the audit really has gone this year. And as Elder Douglas had mentioned as well, a lot of hard work goes into the issuance of this report. A lot of that is happening within GC Treasury. We also have the GC Investment Office as well as GCAS themselves that assist with the successfulness of this audit. I also really want to show my appreciation for the Audit Committee. They have had a strong commitment to making sure the audit process goes well and that there's a high level of quality and expectation for this organization. All of that is integral in a successful audit and the issuance of a successful report like we have today. As we look at the financial statement information, you're going to see a few things that happened. We had a very successful year for the church. With that, we saw some increases in overall when it comes to both tithe and offering. So overall, about a 2% or $4 million increase, which we'll highlight later. And we also had a fortunate year from a market standpoint. So when we're looking at the overall investment gains, we're going to see that that did benefit us during the current year, or the year ended 2024. But with where the market has been thus far during 2025, it's also important to understand that a lot of the numbers that come from the investment earning side of things are really based upon how that market does in a given year. And with where the market's done, some of these numbers could be very different today when you're looking at the investment side of things versus where they were as of the point in time for December 31st, 2024. As we turn into the actual financial statements, which I believe you should have in your online packets, I'm going to start by looking at page 1 of the financials. That second paragraph under the section of the qualified opinion is where I'm going to bring your attention to right now. And this opinion is consistent with opinions that we have issued for many, many years. And the opinion is qualified, but the qualification only relates to the fact that the numbers only include the financial activities of the GC operating or the GC Treasury Office. It does not include all of the information of the worldwide divisions, conferences, things like Gen Con, which we highlight within that basis for the qualified opinion. So very consistent with what we've seen in the past. We are stating that the financial information is materially accurate, but it is only including the activities of the General Conference Treasury Office or the operations within this building. As we turn a couple more pages into the financial statements to page 4, we will see the statement of financial position. This is also considered a balance sheet or a point in time with where the organization was as of year end. Here you can see the layout of your various assets, liabilities, and where you were from an ending net assets for the year. As we look through the assets, you can see that we saw an increase in total assets of about $37.4 million from the year ended 2023 to our year ended December 31st, 2024. The largest area where we saw a change or an increase has to do with your combined balances of cash and investments. So we had $462 million in combined cash investments to end the 2024 year compared to about $434 to end the 2023 year. A lot of that is attributable to the increase overall in the investment gains during the year, as well as the increase in the tithe and offering that I've already mentioned. Looking down into the liabilities section, we see a pretty consistent number overall, up about $59 million compared to $49 million in the prior year. Most of the increase being in the way of accounts payable, which is largely amounts that will be appropriated out to the other divisions. Moving down into net assets, you can look at the third line from the bottom, you can see we had total net assets to end the year of about $596 million. That's an increase from the ending net asset balance of $568 million. So overall, we were able to increase our net asset position, or our net worth, by about $27 million. On pages 5 and 6, you will see how we ended up there throughout the year. So as we look at page 5 and 6, you can see we're looking at the combined statements of activities. So again, this is for your operating funds, your plant fund, and your other funds. And when we look at that, we can see total revenues were up about $18.3 million. So when we saw the increase in cash and investments, it really is due to the activity of the organization throughout the year. And when you isolate just the tithe and offering amounts, we were up from about $187 million combined last year to $191 million. So we saw an increase of around 2% when we're looking at that increase of the combined tithe and offering. We also were very fortunate when you're looking at the donations that you've received throughout the year. So similar to last year, we were about $37 million in donations, bequests, and other contributions. That number was consistent this year with about $38.4 million. And much of that comes in the way of the donor advised funds, where you're receiving funding or contributions from donors for purposes that they want to benefit the church. Where I mentioned on the investment return piece, you can see we had about $17.8 million in investment return net of investment related expenses. So all of that's contributing into our overall increase of about $18.3 million in revenues year over year, ending at that $297 million in total revenues for 2024. Moving down into the expenses, you can see the breakdown of how the outgoing or outflows of the church are spent or generated. And when you look at that, you can see really two different categories. It's going to be the program services. This is all of the mission, the accountability, the leadership, what the church is really here to do and what the purpose of the church is. All of those expenses are being categorized into that program services line. Then we also have another section for supporting services. This is the church operations, all of the stuff that needs to come into play so that we can service the missions and what the church is here to do. I like to look at that allocation between how we're spending our funding on program versus support services. And when you look at those amounts, so that $222 million compared to that $54 million on the support or the office operating side, you're at an allocation of about 80% on the program service side of things compared to 19% on the office operating or the supporting. That's really a very healthy percentage. I see some nonprofit organizations that I work with where you start getting into a 70-30 split or something more near to that, but anything around that 80-20 split or below is a really, really healthy organization, and most of those funds that are coming in are going out or being reappropriated back into the church's missions. So I think that's a really, really good number, a really good allocation to be proud of. When you look at the overall expenses, you can see we did have some increases. On the program side of things, we were up to $222 million compared to $199 million. If you look at those side-by-side comparisons, you can see most of that had to do with that other programs line item of $73 million. The biggest contributing factor within that line item has to do with distributions out of the donor advised fund. So we had about $39 million in donor advised distributions this year compared to about $24 million last year. So that's where most of our increase is happening. On the operating side of things, we were up about a couple $1 million there, going from $52 million up to the $54.7 million. So around a 5% increase. And I think that's a really good percentage to have, considering all of the inflation and the challenges from containing costs that all organizations are dealing with these days. So we do want to see a balance within that makes sense, and this $54.7 million does make sense when you look at the 80 to 20% allocation, because we really need that operating piece to run the church's programs. As we move down page 5, you can see about 3 lines up from the bottom, we're looking still at our without donor restrictions, as the church receives both contributions and funding that are with and without donor restrictions. But on the without donor restrictions, or the unrestricted side, we did add almost $17 million to the bottom line, or to our unrestricted net assets, going from $509 million up to $526. And when we shift over to page 6, we can see all of the activity on the with donor restrictions. So these are a lot of those amounts that come in where a individual contributing to the church, or we have specific offerings that are for a specified purpose. They're going to show up in the with donor restriction category of the financial statements. As we look through that part of the financial statements, we can see that we had overall revenues or inflows of about $33 million. And if you go down a few more lines, you can see amounts released from restrictions during the year, which amounted to 24.6. So this is very typical for an organization. As we get revenue in one year, we'll spend that and release it in a subsequent future year. So when we go down on the with donor restrictions, you can see that we added $10.6 million in net assets with donor restrictions. And then 3 lines up from the bottom on page 6, you can see the overall impact, or the overall increase of $27.6 million to the net assets of the organization, taking us to that total net assets of $596 million. So I know there's a lot of numbers thrown at you this morning when we're looking at these financial statements, but a lot had to come to fruition for these numbers to show up the way they did. And adding another $27 million is a very positive thing for the church, and really provides a lot of financial stability going forward. I have 2 other items to go through, but does anybody have any questions on the financial statements before I get into the next 2 items?
All right, so friends, that was it. You heard and saw it. So from the video, the General Conference is growing financially. Growing money. But as I said, are the leaders happy about the financial strength or the growth of the church financially? Let me share something with you. Today, Pastor Ted Wilson posted this on his on his Facebook page, and he said, during the 2025 spring meeting, Paul H. Douglas, General Conference Treasurer, reported that the GC's financial position as of December 31, 2024 is stronger. We are strong because our God is strong, said Douglas. The financial strength of the GC is not because of our own accomplishments. It's rather because of God's divine purpose to provide us what we need to do his work. The financial strength of the General Conference is strong, according to Pastor Ted Wilson. So friends, that means the General Conference is happy. It's very happy about the cash that is coming in, the growth of the finances of the conference. But I have a question. Friends, I don't understand this. God is the one providing, but why are we going to the governments for money? Friends, let me know your thoughts in the comments. As I said, here on this channel, we only share and comment on what is taking place both within the church and also outside of the church. So if you have not joined us by subscribing, friends, please click on the subscribe button right down there, and make sure you press on the notification bell so that you don't miss any of the videos we publish. There are more news stories coming up, so please check back the next day for more stories. Thanks for watching. See you next time. God bless.